Service brokers that work for you, or are service brokers broken? So, who am I? I'm Kevin Rutten. I work for Fivetwenty. I've been working with Cloud Foundry since 2015. The group I've been working with has been the maintainers of the Cloud Foundry community since its inception. And I've worked on many dojos and on-site with many companies. I've been staff-auged with even VMware. So I've been in the CF community for a long time. I love it. And I want to talk to you about service brokers. So it's very easy to say service brokers are elegant, right? 7 simple verbs, the design, the creation, the way it's worked for years has led Cloud Foundry to have that, get my app onto the cloud, I don't care how. And for the CF push, beautiful. For services, it's taken us a long way. We have brokers for Postgres, Redis, RDS, RabbitMQ, like just the ecosystem of service brokers has been huge, right? Cloud Foundry gives us so many pieces that make the developers' lives easy. We're not dealing with reams of YAML and indentation problems on the developer side. CF push, a small manifest, right? We're not dealing with, let's face it, the Kubernetes people, they have some more work in their backlog to do all the time. So they focus on the hard parts, the services, and then with all the clients they've been on, right, getting Cloud Foundry up has been the first challenge, getting some services and apps up is second, and in the distant third, in the backlog, is backups and monitoring and upgrades and dealing with these services, getting them up, getting them in, right? Don't know how many of you have been told by your managers, by your developers, we need to upgrade the services. Oh no, you can't upgrade the services because we need to be on that version, or you can't have the downtime or anything like that. So a lot of this stuff gets pushed. Monitoring, a lot of our customers will have Dynatrace or Datadog installed, and the developers don't have a way to log in and look at it. So, working with some of them, we have Postgres, we have Prometheus, there's a Postgres exporter. Cloud Foundry is amazing. You can just take this, download it, right? Here is the VCAP that all of our developers get with names, passwords, host names. And I made a simple script, right? And, it's got some helper scripts. I'll just, explode this part out. The helper script basically pulls out these values. I'm trying to keep these slides to, one page, nice, simple things, because I'm going to go into some concepts later on. And this is actually, right, just CF push this. Cloud Foundry handles the high availability, the pushing. We amazingly just bind to service to this app. It figured it out. It exposes an endpoint on the router, and I can feed it into Prometheus. Just go and edit Prometheus, give it this. I now monitoring my Postgres server. Cloud Foundry is amazing. Services are amazing. A little bit of work for us to do. So you've got teams, and the accounting team wants to use a database from the marketing team. If you're lucky, shareable's turned on. If not, you're going to be using cups. Okay, cups. Migrating between foundations. Right? You've got services in US East, you've got foundation in US West, you want to do some migrating, yeah, that's going to be more cups. So the migration, the upgrades, everything is not there yet. So with almost all the customers I'm working with, when it comes to migrating and upgrading and changing to a cluster, the developers have to push back. You need maintenance windows and maintenance pages, so I give them suggestions. Here's a nice little rack maintenance to put up maintenance pages. You've got the blue-green. People will write an app that will just have enough of an API so that stuff doesn't crash while these upgrades are going. Right? And then they fall back to cups to try and work around all these issues. And then, yeah, trying to connect to a maintenance, your IBM mainframe to your old systems. Yep, cups for old systems. And we've got so many of these large companies that have whole teams of DBAs. And the DBAs are wonderful. They'll use Ansible, Chef, Puppet to build all these services. And then we use cups. So elegant isn't always practical. I mean, here's something that will, bring back flashbacks of trying to move a service. Oh, geez, we've exceeded a quota somewhere. We've got the Microsoft error. Something happened, right? And what happens? Well, services aren't booting up. They'll go do something somewhere, and you'll have cups, right? Service brokers, service workers, a little bit fragile. So we seem to have an abundance of cups, like just lots and lots and lots of cups in our employments. So while I was working on this, I was trying to come up with the things I did with my customers, with my clients to help them with their services. And I took a step back and said, I think we got to take a bigger picture. I loved our first talk about a renaissance with Cloud Foundry. I think that we've been here long enough to know that Cloud Foundry is not going anywhere. It's working. We just can make it better. So I've got 3 projects that I'm working on. I have to definitely say thank you to Fivetwenty for being a champion for open source development. They're sponsoring the work, a whole team of us doing it. And the name I'm using right now for one of them is Blacksmith, Storehouse, Warehouse. Names pending, we're coming up with something. It's the idea that's important, right? So there are already service brokers that are being written and maintained. The Golang BrokerAPI, wonderful, fantastic, being used by a lot of projects. There's, simpler ones in Ruby. And you can use these right now to, build some very small, simple service brokers that are useful to you. So I created one for one of our teams. That's just a simple list, right? And just create a service in YAML, populate it with a few pre-allocated services, and the broker will, as needed, pull one off the available list, put it into the provisioned list, and it's got some smarts. If you only have one service and one broker, it'll just keep reusing it over and over again. Basically, it's a version of cups. And if you have multiple bindings or multiple services, it'll step through them, and someone can come and clean up them later on. And of course, every talk needs some AI. So I came up with something I'll fit on a slide. Ollama, the project to run large language models on your own servers, right? Instead of using ChatGPT, run Ollama. And we have the Noble project to give you GPUs, but a lot of people are just putting it onto a GPU-enabled box. And Ollama has a bearer token, but from everything I'm reading, you only really get one. There's no access management. So people are putting Nginx in front of it, right? So here's our Nginx. It's in VCAP storage, right? So it can be BOSH deployed or whatnot. And we have a broker that just calls script files with, whether you want to create a service, bind a service, and whatnot. And very simple. Here's a script that will generate a name and password, add it to a JSON file that the broker holds onto, SSHs onto the box, updates Nginx, and there you go. You can add and remove basic aux for your AI today, no problem. There you go. All on-prem, no data leakage, right? But I'm still thinking we can do better. So I'm looking at the brokers, and they have create service and bind service and unbind and delete service. And we're working on, I have a prototype in Ruby. Wayne is getting me to work on a Golang version because Golang is better. And we're breaking it down into, for create services, we're going to have to do a pre-check. Right? Is there enough memory on the system? Are the credentials working? And it's going to start going through multiple steps in a very organized fashion. There's the Cloud Service Broker. They have issue 170 is they call out to Terraform. If Terraform gets too big, if it stalls, if it crashes, right, the Service Broker can't really handle it. So what we're trying to look at is let's build more steps in so we can catch a problem before the Service Broker hits it. Because who here has run a Service Broker where something has failed and you have to go in and clean it up? So we're working on something where if there's a quota, we're now going to have a way of telling the Service Broker, we fixed it, keep going, right? This is one of the things I'm working on. You'll see a little bit more of this later on. But the whole concept of when a Service Broker fails, you don't just throw it away. You can fix it and keep going. And with the new step-by-step method, I'm hoping to get something where when something crashes, something higher up will say, hey, I was on create service, provision network, right? Address and use here is something more usable for our teams. So it should be easier to create smarter service brokers, and we should be able to get it to do more stuff. Monitoring should be set up automatically on the creation of a service. You create a service, you know it's coming, you should be able to create it. Right? If you're using BOSH, you have runtime configs, service brokers with IaaS. You need to know, is it AWS, what the IAM keys are, which region it's in, which, where it's going to be. So there's the other one. If you delete a service, you should clean up the monitoring. I mean, how many people here have set up Pingdom, deleted an app, and now you're getting site uptime and pager duty because, oh, the app you just deleted is triggering, and now you have to go clean it up, right? We should have smarter service brokers. So same with backups. You create a service, backup should be created automatically, should be deleted automatically, or disabled, I should say, on delete. So the second project I'm working on is Blacksmith Union. So, it's a service broker, but it registers service brokers. So it's not a service broker in the same way as it creates a Postgres. It's a service broker, and you take your Postgres service broker and you feed it into Blacksmith Union, and you can get multiple Postgres. Now, we can already do something like this with create service -b workflows. So let's take a step back, and you can give it to multiple Cloud Foundries. And we just give it different vhosts. So now the service broker knows which Cloud Foundry is talking to it, right? And now we give it these two. And when you're provisioning your databases, right, the one in US East will provision one in US East, one in US West will provision one in US West, but potentially you can provision one in the West and East, right? But we're moving some smarts into the broker, into the union, so that we can do more, and we can add more, Redis, and we know about monitoring. So let's give it some information about Prometheus, where Prometheus is, where the endpoints are, and so when you add the services, and we'll have your backups being dealt with BBR and Shield and whatnot. So it's a broker of brokers. And it's right now just a Rails app. It's backed by Postgres, and it can be deployed anywhere. So you can actually deploy it on two different Cloud Foundries if you have the same Postgres in the background, and can be deployed by CF or BOSH. And this gives us some interesting projects we can work on. Right? I like Postgres. lots of ways to set up replication, master, Wally, everything like that, right? And doing that right now requires you to do a lot of manual work and cups and whatnot. But if we control all the information, we can start doing this in the broker. We can make a couple of scripts for the team. We can have it choose whichever replication you want and have it start going through setting this up for migrations. And we can potentially have the ability to do failover without having the user to do anything other than restage. So we're going to have a plugin, that's what we're working on, where we can have stuff like experimental describe services to now get more information about the service broker. Because right now, if you deploy a service broker, you have to look in the environment variables to see what's going on. So we have UAA, we get to ping and have a look at this. We now have the ability to say, hey, create a service from, you have a production database, well, let's use that to create a QA database. All right. And we can now start to play with new commands without really having to modify Cloud Foundry. This is, in a broker, in a CF plugin, we now have a playground for improving and adding functionality to the service brokers. So one of the ones that's pretty exciting for me is just the concept of you have your old Cloud Foundry, maybe it's on AWS, you're moving to GCP. You now have a workflow where you can migrate your databases between infrastructures and migrate your service brokers and migrate your Cloud Foundry basically with the CF restage, right? We can codify all this. And the current project idea we have is to add a DBA org to Cloud Foundry, and anyone that gets added to that, they can basically go in there and start mucking around with the databases. So the developer doesn't have to be, sitting on a call, hey, can you give me the information for this? Can you do this, right? Basically give the DBAs a backdoor into the service brokers to do what they need to do that the service brokers haven't been letting us do. So this is kind of a project we're doing to add functionality to the service brokers that should be there, that everyone is wanting to do and isn't there yet. Now, I'm not showing any code because this part is kind of a high level, this is ideas we want to explain or experiment with. The third thing that just came out of this was temperature gauge. And since we now have something that is able to see, oh, you created a Postgres, you didn't have a metric thing, we just pushed a Prometheus exporter for it, we now have an endpoint for that. Oh, this one did have metrics already exposed. We can now make a dashboard that the average user, right, they can log into CF, they use the same token, go to a dashboard, see, in this case, I have their disk space, because 9 times out of 10, if something fails, they've run out of disk space. So, and it gives you links to the backup routines and the metrics and whatnot. So, by creating this kind of meta broker underneath, we have a new workflow where, create a new user, create a service for production, wait for a couple backups to happen, create service, and tell it to, hey, use the backup from that foundation on the latest one, right, and get the metrics. As much as I like cups, the idea of not having to do that, not having to touch cups, having Cloud Foundry and the service broker doing it all for you that's what should be happening. That's what's happening with our apps, right? We just heard that we have the new Canary deploys and we have the CPU entitlement is now built into Cloud Foundries. Those started out as experiments and they were successful and they got rolled in. So another reason why I want to see a resurgence of service brokers is because there's a lot of move from service brokers to RDS or Cloud SQL. And Postgres as a service elephant, they're shutting down, I'm sorry to say. So, and I was going to show the scripts I had for booting up MongoDB. IBM shut down Compose half a year ago, and the domain name doesn't even resolve anymore. All those scripts for working with Mongo and Compose and whatnot, gone. They're like, no one can use them ever again. And Google has end-of-life Cloud SQL. Well, they haven't actually announced it, but we know it's coming. It's like any day now. So, the future, what's the plan? Well, while doing the research for this, the service broker repo, not much activity since 2020. There's a document for a v3. The link's broken. They had plans for generic actions. They had lots of concepts to come out. And, there's still lots of love for the service broker. Shout out to the Cloud Service Broker team. And, they're still improving that. But we can't even talk about version 3, right? Google Docs, no one's responding. I've been, pinging this for a little while. If anyone here knows anybody in the Open Service Broker team, please, get them to contact us. We want to try and get this going again. The Google group, it's been shut down for, spam and lack of use. So the plan right now is we're working on the 3 projects. We're hoping to do an RFC for transfer service ownership. So if you have an existing foundation and you install this experimental broker, you can transfer the ownership of your service to this. You keep a link to it, so everything keeps working. But now you can move a service to another foundation, to another broker. You can move it around, right? I'm still going through, because if you move the service broker, you also have to update the service bindings, and I'm trying to make sure that nothing gets broken in this. When this is ready, we're going to make a request to the team, to the service broker, the TOC, to say, hey, this is our working code, this is what we're doing. We want to do an RFC for adding the ability to expose more information into Cloud Foundry. Basically just give a way for the users to not have to look into a wiki. Where is our metrics? Oh, we're on Datadog. Okay, where's the information for that? Okay, we go to Confluence and search and realize Confluence search sucks. And then go to, your Bitwarden, your Vault, whatever credentials. And then when all of this is going, and we have all these pieces, we want to see if we can do what the CPU entitlement people did and just get put into the tooling. So these are kind of the ideas that we've been having. Like, every place I've been working at, service brokers have worked, but they haven't worked great. And I think that we have an opportunity to come in there with a fresh pair of eyes, with a new interest in Cloud Foundry that, people who are using Kubernetes are like, yeah, this is a lot of work. I think we can make a big improvement while keeping it the same, keeping it what we like. So, okay, say thank you for listening, and this is a community project. We're going to be putting it into the open source. It will be under the Apache 2 or MIT license, so that it can be pulled into Cloud Foundry proper when it's ready. And in the meantime, I'm hoping if any of you are interested in better service brokers, you'll work with us, you'll talk with us, you'll try and test it out. The website's not up. I've registered the domains, but I'm not good at CSS and logos. So we're hoping to have something out next month or something closer to Christmas that people can start to play with. So if anybody here is interested, right, Fivetwenty, we would love to hear from you. Thank you.